Welcome to the Arlington Street Church podcast. Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
An ancient Zen Buddhist story goes something like this. It's called The Tale of the Non-Judgmental Farmer. There was once a farmer and his son who lived together on a farm with their horse. One night, strong winds damaged a section of their stable, and the horse broke free and ran away. When the neighbors heard the news the following morning, they were shocked. The horse represented a significant loss of income for the farmer. Such bad luck, the neighbors said. Maybe good luck, maybe bad luck. Who knows? Replied the farmer. The next day, the horse reappeared, leading 3 other magnificent wild mares back to the farm. The neighbors couldn't believe their eyes and shouted to the farmer, "Look, your horse has returned, along with more horses. What incredible luck!" "Maybe good luck, maybe bad luck. Who knows?" replied the farmer. A few days later, the farmer's son was trying to train one of the wild mares and was thrown to the ground awkwardly, breaking his leg. "Such awful luck," the neighbors once again told the farmer. "Maybe good luck, maybe bad luck. Who knows?" said the farmer. Later that week, soldiers marched into the town looking to conscript young men for the army and saw that the farmer's son wasn't able to walk. "Yours is the only boy in town we are not taking with us. You should consider yourself very lucky," one of the soldiers told the farmer as they were leaving. "Maybe good luck, maybe bad luck. Who knows?" replied the farmer. I found this in a post by a blogger, Theo Winter. Winter observes, "From one perspective, the Zen story is just a comfort food philosophy. It's simply another reassuring story we can tell ourselves when times are bad to help us rationalize things in the same way chocolate temporarily soothes the pain of humiliating ourselves or getting bad news at work." But he goes on to offer another perspective, that the story can provide more than fleeting comfort. He decided to make a concerted effort to think about the small inconveniences of daily life in a different way, to actively reframe situations, to put more mental energy into thinking creatively about how we assign different meaning to a bad event. For example, how I might grow patience if I miss a green light, in humility if I do something stupid, in gratitude when I'm caught up in a first world problem. He says it was very hard and that it made a real and noticeable difference in the quality of his daily life. He also acknowledged that just because it worked for him doesn't mean it would work for everyone else. TEDx speaker Ari Saperstein tells a story of judgment gone wild. He called it facing the empathy deficit. When Ari was 12 years old, he had a conversation over text with his friend Josh. To summarize, basically, out of the blue, Josh sent him a very hateful, bullying message about his sexuality and his intelligence. Ari responded, "Why would you say that to me? I thought you were my friend." Josh said, "Okay, G to G, got to go." He was awkward, vulnerable, avoiding. That was Josh. They didn't speak for 12 years. Ari recounted that another incident about the same time happened when he had been amused and laughed at the antics of a classmate and his father who were communicating nonverbally. And then another kid turned to him and said, "I can't believe you'd laugh at someone who's deaf." Ari was mortified. He felt vulnerable and exposed, didn't want to deal with it. He carried that shame for 10 years. So seeing an opportunity after those 10 years, Ari tracked down and called that classmate in that story and asked what he remembered and felt about that situation. His classmate said, "No, I don't even remember that. There's no reason for you to be so upset about it. You don't need to be so hard on yourself." Ari realized he'd been punishing himself and suffering for nearly 10 years. So he took that lesson and decided to follow up with Josh. So he reached out to him. He got an email back from Josh saying that that message, that hateful conversation, was the most shameful thing that he'd ever done, a shame that he'd felt his entire life since, and that it was especially on his mind last year when he came out as gay. But that wasn't the most surprising thing about the message. Ari was more shocked by the fact that Josh had felt shame. On the one hand, he was happy to be facing his actions now, glad that they had reconnected, but Josh still didn't want to be punished for his actions anymore. Ari sat with that and realized that he was frustrated because he couldn't believe that Josh thought he was still punishing him. He didn't want revenge, he didn't want retribution, he just wanted to move on and be adults. And then as he looked further into the message, and he realized that Josh had used the words regret and shame, something clicked. He realized that he's not talking about Ari punishing Josh. He's talking about Josh punishing Josh, just like Ari had been punishing Ari. So there's the empathy, the common suffering, and Ari was able to understand, and they were able to talk about it. They reconnected, and Josh actually attended the TEDx talk that Ari presented. Ari concludes very neatly, you don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to be genuine. If you were to look into your enemy's heart, what would you find that's different than your own? So there's lots of other stories of judgment gone wild happening right now. I've named a few just for fun. The first one is Nightmare at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We have a leader who publicly mocks others, who makes statements critical of people's intelligence, their physical abilities, their race, their experience, virtually anything. We have the Not Okay Corral. We see frequent news items and videos of people in everyday life raging at someone who doesn't speak or believe or act like them. Perfect examples of racism, entitlement, profiling. Another one we see a lot is, "You are not my friend." We have friends who unfriend each other on Facebook for voting the way they did, who say you have to be stupid to vote that way. Another favorite of mine is, "Oh, the shade." We have confusing cultural behaviors like shade, where insults can be devastating and they can also be considered highest praise. And people are admired for their drama and deftness in delivering them. Check out the YouTube video RuPaul compilation of shade thrown at Michelle Visage. There are other tales to tell, but let's move on into what can we do about it. So back to judgmental. What does it mean to be judgmental or to have a judgmental mind? It means feeling, acting, and thinking negatively, critically, disapprovingly, generally excessively. It's a mindset, it's negative, it's intentional. Often it's compulsive, it's fixed, rigid, full of opinions, full of attachment. It comes from an inward and self-focused ego. It comes from separateness or separating. Ultimately, it comes from suffering. And it's different than having a discerning mind, which is humble, open, and one might say you have having an empty mind. A discerning mind is forgiving, equanimous, peaceful, non-reactive, creative. And it comes from outward-focused or ultimately non-ego, a oneness. And ultimately it comes from non-suffering. It's normal, natural to be judgmental, Everyone goes there. It's not good or bad. And if you're getting tangled up in that, maybe it's a sign you're being judgmental. But there are consequences in your energy, how you show up, and how you experience your life. So what are your choices? How can you show up if you experience a situation where someone is being judgmental in what they say or how they act? Here's one way to look at it that I learned in my coach training at the Institute of Professional Excellence for Coaching. You can be sad, dispirited, miserable, feeling that you can't do anything about it. You can avoid it and run from it. In so doing, you can protect yourself. You can draw sympathy. You can support even. But you don't engage, and there's no immediate opportunity for you to follow up. You don't have the opportunity to lead anybody else. You can hate it right back. You can be angry, frustrated, which makes perfect sense since it stands against everything you believe. You can, again, you're protecting yourself. Remember, though, when you fight, it's so that someone wins and someone loses. Someone gets hurt. You dig in, take sides, and become intractable. A third way to look at it would be you can find a way to live with it. You can keep going to work, to socialize, and put a brave face on. You can find a tribe who feels the same way you do. You can find workarounds. Essentially, you can make lemonade out of lemons. The fourth way, there's 7 total, you can set out to do something about it in a way, or a way to change or fix it so that you're taking care of yourself and others. Like what Ari did with Josh in facing the empathy deficit, he reached out. You are more discerning, less judgmental as you rise in these energy levels. The 5th energy level is you can open up to a wider in scope or longer in time view, looking for opportunities with impact beyond the immediate situation. The 6th level, you can be like the farmer in the tale and say, maybe good, maybe bad, who knows. You're engaged fully with all your heart, with all your mind and spirit, and you take on the situation as an valuable experience. And the 7th level, which I don't think anybody can achieve in any long way, but we can achieve moments of it, you can have unconditional acceptance for the situation. This is a hard one to grasp, but it's complete non-judgment. It is what it is. So which one of these ways would you want to show up? In the first 2, you're choosing negative energy, which drains you and keeps you locked in conflict and can even get you sick. In the last 5, you're choosing positive energy, which supports you and opens you up and creates possibility. So here's some tools and tips and recommendations and just observations that I made that can help you make those choices. Which energy do you want when the time comes? So when you recognize someone or something is judgmental, use that as a cue to consider some of the choices and practices. In other words, just be aware. You see it, use it as a cue. You can make a choice. And this works whether you see it from someone or whether you catch yourself doing it. Remember that when someone is being judgmental, it's about them, their experience, beliefs, perception. It's not about you or anyone else. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "People do not seem to realize that their opinion of the world is also a confession of their character." Remember that how you interpret judgmental words and actions is about you. It's your interpretation. Notice your thoughts and emotions and how they are separate from what was said. Try reframing them like Theo Winter did. You can't stop someone else from being judgmental. They're having their own experience, and this is really important. They have to choose to make that change for themselves. Viktor Frankl said, Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So, take a breath or otherwise make that space before you jump in. Maybe you should take the time to think what the farmer did. Maybe yes, maybe no, who knows? Remember that reacting to a judgmental situation by being judgmental, meaning with negative energy, isn't likely to turn out well. Be compassionate and empathetic. Listen deeply. Connect emotionally. Look for the common ground at the emotional and experience level. Have loving kindness. Remember what Ari said. If you were to look in your enemy's heart, what would you find that was different from your own? Practice right speech from the Buddhist Eightfold Path. It means speaking truthfully and honestly, speaking in a way to promote harmony and goodwill, using language to reduce anger and ease tensions, using language in a way that is useful. That includes things like being direct, preferably face-to-face, as if your mother was in the room. It doesn't mean being blunt. Avoid shade unless you're a master practitioner. Use social media masterfully and mindfully. Don't misuse and hide behind it. Don't say anything in social media you wouldn't say face-to-face. And stick to the facts. Try saying it without embellishing adjectives and adverbs. In fact, try listening and stripping away embellishments as you listen. You can catch yourself in judgment in the moment it occurs. Try keeping a judgment journal. I'd recommend at least 2 weeks. Analyze it. Look for patterns and insights into your own behavior and energy. Be yourself. Be authentic. Be true to your values. Practice what you preach. Model the behavior you would like others to have toward you. And I really love this last one. Don't assume the past is repeating itself. It's a foundation principle for my coaching training. It is us, not history, that creates the future. Buddhist teacher Corrado Pensa has a nice way to wrap this all up. He says, an 8th century Buddhist poet said, if someone hits you with a stick, you don't get angry at the stick because the stick was moved by the person. Now, that person was moved as well. So why do you get angry at the person? In the same way that the stick is moved by the person, then the person is moved by a whole set of conditions, and our reaction is equally moved by a whole set of conditions. If we're stuck in a judging mind, then we do not see the conditions, we don't see the flowing nature of things, and we don't see the suffering in which the judgment is rooted. When we realize that this is suffering, and suffering doesn't belong to us, it's a common feature, it's not special, then something warmer, kinder, loving arises in us. So do we want to cultivate something which is cold and ego-oriented, or do we want to cultivate something which is warm and inclusive? As Aldous Huxley said, the choice is ours.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.